Okay, people. Shaman Hawk here for Shamanic Lodge. So I'll let a little bit of time go by, and well, no, I won't. Usually I let time go by and let people get on, but it was kind of a sporadic thing. So uh, a lot of times I get content for videos from talking to people. Things that I don't pay much attention to normally in everyday life, but then when an issue comes up, it's like, oh yeah, that's something important that people don't really think about or they don't know about. So that's one of today's topic, and that's going to be really about building a foundation. And when you're making big life changes, it's like a big renovation in your house. And in that, you have to have your design of where you want to go. You're in this house now, and let's call that your life. And especially that works with dream interpretation. If you're dreaming about your house, it's a good sign of your life. And so you look at this one house, your life, and you say, okay, I want to change this altogether. So I need a plan. And you figure out what you want your new house or new life to look like. Well, then the next thing is you have to look at the engineering of that. Can you build on top of the house that you have? And how much weight can you put on that? What's the foundation made of? What's the rest of the infrastructure? Do you want to go up or do you want to go out? So, as your normal, let's say, one-story house, you're going to be able to go out as much as you want. And you'll have to put foundations in for that new additions, bedrooms, kitchen, whatever. If you want to go up, and the higher you want to go up, the more of a foundation you have to have. In some cases, you can go under the foundation if it's concrete and you can splice onto it. But that's a bit of engineering and excavation that needs to be done. Sometimes, if the house is just sitting on the soil or on rocks, stilts, posts, columns that go into the ground, it's a lot easier to pull those up. The problem with that is when you're comparing it into the life issues, is when you're starting to destroy the house in the renovation, it's no longer there. If you're doing that to your personality and you're making these big life changes, your ego is the first one to go into rebellion and protest because it senses the self-destruction. It's like we're going to die. Who we know we are, who we've always been, you're trying to kill us. And the truth is like, well, yeah, in a way, but we're going to make us better. And you have to really look at the process when you feel this, you feel yourself slipping away through this process. You're not much different than the caterpillar becoming the butterfly or the little water nymph that becomes a dragonfly. They become two completely different creatures than what they were. Yet everything that they need for the second phase is already inside them. Sometimes people can go through this process as part of what they say their life's purpose. They live this normal life and then they go through this great changes. As an example, the wings of the butterfly have always been in a caterpillar. It just melts and reconfigures itself. But think about that. It has to be okay with that process. Imagine if we're going to go through this other phase, and part of our other phase is just like growing wings, like dragonflies and uh, butterflies. You'd have to be okay with getting into your cocoon, wrapping up in your sleeping bag, hanging from a tree or something, and melting into this pod, and then emerging then, as this different being, hoping that nothing interrupts your process. And you'd have to just allow yourself to go in a deep sleep or even just lose consciousness for an extended period of time, which I think would be kind of cool, really. I'd love to be able to just fly to some place instead of buying an airline ticket. But the same thing with the foundation. Where people get really misguided is the alleged fake shamans who never went through any training, never went through an apprenticeship, have no clue about what shamanism really is, and they're going to go out and be teachers. The one that's just a little bit not as bad as that one are the ones who went through shamanic courses, became a shaman on paper, and now they can go teach shamanism. Please, I want you to just switch this over to any other field, whether it's a brain surgeon, a, a doctor in general, engineering, pilot, you know, you would want that person to be proven in their field before they put other people's lives at risk. So, one of the things that I've heard before, and I recently heard again, is when a person is going through these really horrific experiences, and let's say, as for this example, with this last case I've been working with, someone being really harassed by different consciousness, different beings, spirits, whatever you want to call them. Knowing that this person is alert, a lot more conscious or awake or empathic than these other beings in consciousness would just come and constantly harass them, where a person cannot sleep, feels totally disrupted in life, basically becoming non-functional, scared, um, and just a total life chaos. I have seen these kinds of cases where not treated well goes into severe drug abuse and then even suicide. The alleged shamans would tell somebody like this, oh, you're going through an initiation. You just have to deal with it. You're meant to do this. And this is some of the most ridiculous bullshit that anybody can be told. It's dangerous for someone to tell somebody in that position that analysis or conclusion, especially if you've never just done any investigative work. Because here's the thing with this: when people are going through these awakenings, quickenings, huge life change shifts, they don't know what to expect. If they've had no contact with shamanism, real shamanism, if they've had no real experiences on how to deal with any of these things, they're desperately searching for answers. And so when the first person that comes up and gives this person an answer, they're going to take it as the truth. They have no reason not to believe it because this person says they're a shaman. This person has been referred to them by other people in the Facebook echo chamber or shamanic circle or new age book club. So they're like, oh, okay, it's an initiation. I got to deal with it. And they keep doing it and doing it. Imagine telling somebody that's in an abusive relationship, that's getting beaten every day. Oh, but this is how it works. This is how, it's a test from God. You just got to see, it's testing your love. No, it's abuse. It's a bad situation. Get out. And it's the same thing with these. So this is just a cruel, ignorant thing to tell people who are going through these real suffering experiences. Why do all these spirits come in there? And why do they harass that person? There's a long list of reasons because, like many species alive on the physical plane, everything eats something different. Okay, so you have birds that only eat meat. Some of them love to catch fish. Some of them eat anything, like a chicken. You can feed that thing anything. Some will only eat grains. Well, the same thing with consciousness or these other beings or even life energies. We like to eat stored energy, and the stored energy that we eat comes in food. So that's the stored energy. Some of them like the raw form of an energy. So these are some beings that cannot incarnate into a human being, into a body or something on the physical plane. So this is a person that, or a being that needs to feed off something else. Very, very few. An air plant can just sit in the tree and get all this nutrition and grow into a plant with no root systems, pull everything it needs from the air. Well, we can't do that. I can't think of anything else that can. So everything needs to consume some form of energy source to be able to sustain itself in its life cycle. And they're going to eat different things, and they like different things. So some of them love signature. Some of them have a fear signature they like to devour. Some of them just get onto you like a tick or a leech and just pulls in whatever you have available, as a parasite. And these types of energies, some are real parasitic, meaning they're an attachment. Some want to experience the life as we know it vicariously through your existence. Now, that can even lead into a possession. So, but it takes investigative work, and the investigative work is you have to look at the signs of the effects to decide what type of energy signature or attachment or whatever is onto this person. You know, real healing work is listening and exploring. A good, like a homeopath, you're going to go to that person, sit down for 2 hours and answer loads of questions, and often very intimate ones. It's not like the healing that Western medicine, where you sit in their room for 20 minutes, talk to the doctor for 5, and he writes you a prescription. The shamanic investigative process, whether it's healing, guiding, coaching, all these other things, it's just, or an apprenticeship, is lots of investigation, more than anything, and asking other questions back to get more information, because we know that no one's going to tell you the complete truth. So going back to these foundations is we really need to investigate where that person wants to go and why. The things that they've been dealt with, in life, things that they're dealing with now, obstacles that they're going along with, um, really innate abilities, things they used to do as a kid before they were suppressed by social media or social programming, all these other things. And this, in that investigation, something that I come across a lot is when people are building the bad foundation. And they're building a bad foundation on top of a foundation that wouldn't support itself, much less a new one. And this all comes from these other people in the New Age circles. And again, this is why I really encourage people that if you like travel, if you like helping people, shamanism could be the life for you. It's a minimum 4-year apprenticeship, and I promise you there's lots to do out there. So when you're going for this life change, or you have these other experiences, if you visitations, bad dreams, I mean, you name it, and you're looking for that person to help you with these things, someone in shamanism, a shaman, shamanic practitioner, shaman healer, they are different people. You don't have to be the shaman to be the shamanic healer or shamanic practitioner. Sometimes that's a regular person, sometimes it's an apprentice. But ask that person lots of questions. Ask that person about themselves, their training, what qualifies them, what were their achievements, and so on. And I've talked about that in other videos. If they say, oh, well, you got to trust me, or that's the way it is, well, then leave, find somebody else. Ask the flow of nature, or make a prayer for it, or so on. And it usually gets answered. So these people will end up giving you information that you're going to put into your new foundation without checking your foundation that you already have. And sometimes you need to totally uninstall all your programs in your mind and reinstall something else and basically just reboot. And in doing that, one of the things that I strongly recommend is this 90-day period to where you're really not involved with anyone at all. Now, this might seem like it's difficult for relationships, oh, well, I still want to, be with my lover and so on. It's like, well, okay, but when you're downloading a new program and installing one or uninstalling, they say don't do anything else with your computer. Just wait. Okay, you're looking about making a big life change. How many more years are you going to live? And you don't want to take 90 days to focus solely on yourself? If your lover, husband, boyfriend, wife, girlfriend, whatever, doesn't want to give you that 90 days of solitude to just do this for yourself? Is that somebody you really want to spend your time with? You know, this is another phase that I'm going through. It's been 8 months for me like that. This is the ninth month. And I go through these phases periodically. The longer the phase is, it's kind of a sign for how much bigger the new life change is going to be for me in my next episode in life. So I just roll with it because I know it's well worth it. You know, I've been doing this long enough. I know that these periods of solitude or not having any relationships and stuff like that is well worth it. I'm rebuilding my foundation. I have rebuilt my foundation a lot in life. And because the life changes that I go through are, 180 degrees plus from the where that way I used to live in these sections before. Personally, I'll go through these, 4 or 5 year periods, and my life changes so much. The geographic location, topography, culture, what I'm doing for the everyday life, I mean, is completely different. It's like, going into one movie where you're an actor and you're the movie's a tragedy or something, and the next one you go through this phase and then it's action comedy, you know. So I'm going from the teacher, the life coach, the healer, and I'm going back into a more, action type environmental life, and that's my favorite part to work in. But I have to be willing to do the work of the foundation and redo my foundation. And because of the works that I get into in these phases, it's like the difference between a house foundation and a high rise foundation, or when I was working more in construction, a bridge foundation for those big columns for flyovers and ramps. Oh, there's a lot going on under the ground. So that huge column you see going up there to hold that ramp of the highway, that's nothing compared to what's below it. And I used to be one of the guys that would go down and build that stuff down there before the stuff came out of above the earth. And so it's a great metaphor when you're looking at what you're going to be doing and how much support you need within yourself. Remember now, even those high-rise buildings or those huge bridges and dams especially, what's on either side and under that dam is just phenomenal compared to what you see. It's almost like describing an iceberg. These heavy things. So that iceberg, for instance, it can stop the biggest ships, the biggest nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers, all that are no match for these big icebergs because of the foundation that's holding it right there. How do you recommend the 90 days in isolation is spent? You can do um, the, like I said, you can be in your regular life. It's just the integration of the energies in you. And like I say, with relationships and things like that, particularly with lovers, that's one of the things that can really, because you're always reworking yourself with that other person's energy. The absolute best situation is to go camping in the forest for 3 months. You know, when we're with business and life and children and things like that, that's almost impossible. You can, or she did one where she was in the forest for 45 days, but she would take little trips back into town or to do things and then go back out into the forest. But her nights were spent in the forest most of her time. With me here, like I said, I'm on a farm, a 10-acre farm. I haven't had any visitors in 8 months, and I am my social structure is chicken, ducks, horses, a donkey, and some dogs. And yeah, interacting with the house, my grandkids, daughter, and her husband. And that's about the best that that's going to get. But I'm going to be doing this it'll probably be at least a year for me to make this whole circle. Your diet, of course, I do this thing where I do like rice and tuna fish, or today, lots of watermelon. I give the rest of it to the chickens, writing, journaling, that's another one. Exercise is really important. You could go through periods of fasting. I really recommend going into the um, minimalism and diet, minimalism, and keep your exercise up the same way. Look around like, oh, I don't need this, I don't need that. Throw things away, give things away, ceremoniously burn them in a fire, but just really shift yourself around. That's about the best way. So, but where was I? Back on foundation. So, yeah, and look at your source. Who's going to guide you through this? What's their credentials? What have they done to be doing like this? And I'm going to tell you another one too that's really important. And people call that kind of a real judgmental thing or superficial thing. But I go with this because at the end of the day, we are all living on the earth plane. We are all here. Okay? And the body is a product of the character. And you can take that to the bank. You look at someone, and if they're telling you that they really know their shamanism, they really know this energy work and things like that, but they're 50 pounds overweight and have addictions. Their their diet consists of Coca-Cola and Marlboro. No. The person, the really shamanic, the good, even the shaman or the shamanic practitioner is going to have a clean diet, no addictions, and they'll do regular fasting and minimalizing their eating and so on. So the body is a product of the character. You know, with the new age scene, I know they like to go, oh no, that's just that's just with the vehicle. Whatever. Look in somebody's vehicle. That tells you about them too. So, Becca, if you got any other questions? Nope. Okay. So I'm already 22 minutes into this. People write to shamaniclodge@gmail.com. Post some questions. You can leave comments in here, and I'll try and get back to them. You can get me on Facebook, Shaman Hawk. I'm not doing too much there because of all the censorship. I know they got me like shadow banned. My stuff doesn't get out that much anymore because I'm not a vaccine kind of person. I'm not an establishment kind of person either. So Instagram and all that other stuff. I have blueplanetshaman.com. Hold on. How you started your apprenticeship. Okay. And what was the other one? How I started my apprenticeship and in the 90 days. Here, basically, I had dreams. I had a series of dreams. I was talking about people that I had met in the forest and walked with and talked with that were teaching me things. And the word got around within other shamanic circles, and they were saying, "Oh, so let me hear." Other elders was, "Let me hear your stories." And I was just small, 6 years old, and I'd tell them these stories about these people that I met and the things that we talked about and so on. They're like, "Oh, okay. Well, here we're going to do some work with you and test you." Basically, it was a screening to get into the whether or not I was worthy of being into a shamanic apprenticeship and so on. And then I went through a screening for 2 years and then started a 10-year apprenticeship. So, and that ended in 1978. And then I had a 2-year journey. So by 1980, that I was really recognized as a full ranking shaman. I thought by the time I was 40, I'd have things figured out, and no, far from that. It's been nothing but more and more questions ever since then. So, oh, by the way, the people that I was meeting and talking to and walking through with the forest apparently had been dead for generations or even hundreds of years. But it was kind of classic within that social structure that you knew these people exist, but it was never part of the mythology. It was something that was reserved for people, and you were told in the beginning of the apprenticeship, if you tell anybody else who you saw, your apprenticeship is finished. You won't complete it. And they keep that as a control standard, because the only people who will hear about this are the ones that are selected by the, let's say, tribal community or shamanic community to go through it. Now, that's not really true for everybody else. That was just for people outside of our bloodline. People have other signs that come across them to let us know that they would be eligible or be worth the time to spend with them for an apprenticeship. What healers did you work with when you started having dreams? How is someone screened in these situations? Oh, the dreams were like how things really worked energetically. One of them was like the flame of a tree. I'm trying to translate some of this stuff as I'm speaking it, because I didn't learn this in English. Let's say this is the tree, okay? This trunk, and this is the foliage, okay? And in that, so the trunk's in my hand, okay? I'm holding it up. Tree trunk, foliage. The flame of the tree comes up like this, as if it was a candle flame. And by looking at that flame, you can tell how old the tree is, or within its life cycle. Not really how old it is. The rings of the trees tell you that. But you'd have to cut the tree down, right? But that flame will tell you how strong the tree is, how long it's going to live, unless it's like destroyed by its own cycle. What heal did you work with? And then because you can see a huge tree, but then like a very small flame above it, and you know that it's going to die soon. Okay, that was one example. How genetics were passed through the parents into the child from a shamanic standpoint, and sharing these things. And they would just ask, well, how do you, what things can you tell us about what you learned with these people? And so that's some of the screening, with screening for healers outside. Like looking at one of my daughters, she was really good at like fixing anything that happened to one of her dolls. The other one is like you watch how they may not be able to build something well, but they can fix something. So the person that can fix the car, that's been in a crash, can also have some of the capabilities of being a healer. Because they're good at analyzing the problem and what needs to be supplied to make it right. So all they really need is some cross-reference teaching, some cross-reference information. So this is why it's so important in an apprenticeship to have the apprentice learn so many things across the board. I was recently looking at YouTube videos about the static of engineering, because I'm building something to turn over my boat. I need to really understand applied forces from different angles. And automatically I started applying that into metaphors for dealing with people, and their ductility or flexibility. You have an elastic zone. You step on something and it does this, and a plastic zone is when you do this and it stays there, it's bent. Well, a lot of times when people go through traumas, that's like that. You've gone past their elastic zone into their plastic zone until they hit a fail or a fracture. So if I was to explain healing and energetic work to a person that fixes cars, that's how I would do it. I'm a pilot, a diver, so I can talk to pilots, I can talk to divers metaphysically in their terms. So, I hope that answers a little bit of the questions. It's basically, again, investigating the person in these situations, because you look at the dreams. The dreams are going to be signs to what to work with first on the person, or to show that what they're really good at innately, and you'll work with that first, because achieving that skill and developing that skill gives you the mechanisms and methodology to work with the other natural characteristics, that they have, that they would also be very proficient with in shamanism. And so, anyway, I should probably get back to building a boat and doing farm work. So, and if you do a playback, and like I said, this is about building a foundation, and share this with, if you like these videos, share them, subscribe, have other people subscribe. I have a few years of these things, and a lot of people find it useful to, in the beginning part, they don't have to like spend money on getting, talking to people, making the wrong choices in a shaman and so on. And, money's hard enough to come by these days. So, yeah. And Becca, if you got other topics to talk on, we can do that too. Um, I'm always open for, I've been doing this, like I said, my apprenticeship finished in 1978. I've been living this every day since then. There's things that I just don't think about, because I'll be in these phases. I'll go through these phases of a lot of these topics, and these topics over here I won't get into for 10, 15 years, and then do them a lot, and then leave these other topics alone. And that's part of this in this kind of work. Phases. One phase back in, the late 90s, I did 85 sweat lodges in a year and a half. Then I didn't do any for a while. And then back in 2015, 2016, I was doing lots of sweat lodges, but in Eastern Europe. And then I haven't done that many at all since then. So there's things, I did more of the healing circles, and I haven't done the healing circles as much as I have been the last few years. I haven't done it that much in almost 30 years. So if you think about something, even, more than likely I have experience with it somehow, and I'll be happy to do a video on it and give questions. And Becca too, if you know of other platforms where you can do conversations and include other people in, things like that, then I'm really open to that. Okay, got to get out of here. It's been over half an hour. Catch you guys later. Thanks for tuning in, and share and subscribe. Bye-bye.